Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be analysing the game between Garry Kasparov, who is playing black, and Michael Adams, who's playing white. This game started off by white playing e4 and black responding by c5. The Sicilian defense. Knight f3 and d6. Next move would be d4, making a pawn break and trying to open the board a little bit. So black takes, white takes with the knight, and knight to f6. This is a very key move because if black would have played e6, then white would have the chance of playing the Maroczy bind and playing c4. So by attacking the e4 pawn, black must play knight c3, defending on e4, and then a6, so the bishop doesn't check, preventing the bishop from checking the king on b5, bishop to e3, developing a piece, and e5, attacking the knight and gaining some space. Knight back to b3 and bishop to e6. So now the bishop has a good diagonal, but the black bishop isn't very good because it's blocked by the d6 pawn. And let's see what Garry does. So f3, defending the e4 pawn, and knight b to d7, defending the knight on f6. Queen d2, probably enabling alongside castle, and b5, gaining some more space. So, and g4, wanting more space from white, and knight to b6. It's a good square because now I presume black has ideas of playing knight c4 and putting the knight on a good square. So g5, attacking the knight. Knight moves back to d7 and knight d5, offering a trade. Also an outpost. Rook c8. Knight takes on b6. Knight takes back on b6. And queen a5, attacking the knight. Knight moves to c4. Bishop takes on c4, pawn takes on c4, attacking the knight on b3. Queen takes queen, trading. King takes. And we've now reached a kind of endgame kind of position. So, knight moves on a5 and h6. Offering a trade of pawns. So, pawn takes and g6. Interesting move, actually. g6, instead of trading, it moves forwards. Also attacking the pawn. Castle. King c7. Moving the king because it's an endgame. It's key to move the king in endgame positions. So, b3, offering to trade another pawn. And bishop takes h6, attacking the bishop and winning the pawn. Again, bishop takes and rook takes. Putting a tactical weakness on h2 because one defense, one attack by the rook and one defense by the white rook. So pawn takes and g5. Rook g1, king to b6, attacking the knight at the same time as putting a double attack on the pawn on c4. Now it has to move away. Bishop takes. Rook d2, also defending the h2 pawn if you haven't noticed. And rook g6, defending the g5 pawn. Again. King b2, moving the king. And king back to c7. I actually don't know why he played that move, but let's see. So rook d to g2, putting more pressure on the g5 pawn. I presume Gary would probably play f6 now, but let's wait and see. Rook h6, offering to trade pawns, because when rook takes g5, rook takes h2, it's basically trading pawns. Knight d2, attacking the bishop. Bishop retreats to e6, and rook takes, attacking the knight. Rook blocks, rook h3, and c4. King d7, and king to c3, moving the king again. a5, rook g3, offering another trade. Black refuses and plays rook h8. White rook plays to c1, and rook c7, probably doubling the rooks to attack on c4. Rook g1, and as I presumed, rook c8. King retreats to d3, moves away to d3, and king e7. Rook c3, also doubling the rooks to defend the c4 pawn once more. And b5, another pawn break. E takes c5, bishop takes c5. Presume that when bishop takes, he can't take back with the pawn because the rook will take on c3, defended by the rook on c8. Just a heads up. And rook e1, attacking the pawn on e5, and f6, and protecting the pawn on e5. f4, putting pressure on the e5 pawn. Notice that the e5 pawn can't take on f4 because it's a pin to the black king. King retreats from the pin. He retreats to d6. Pawn takes and pawn takes. Rook goes on c1, now enabling for the bishop to move, because if the pawn takes now, then the rook on c3 is now defended. So bishop retreats to c6, king goes to c2, rook g2, rook d3, checking the king. King retreats to c7, and rook attacks on e5. Rook d8, and king c3. Rook g2, a double attack on the knight on d2, as you can see. And rook defends the knight and plays rook c2. a4, advancing the pawn, and knight to b1. Also attacking the rook on g2. Rook takes, king takes. King d6. Rook d3, forced trade. Rook takes, and king takes again. King c3. Notice that this is an equal, slightly better position for Kasparov, because if we look here, Kasparov has a bishop for a knight, and this is a very open position, and so the bishop is usually better than the knight. Well, in this key position, the bishop is better than the knight, slightly. And he has a passed pawn on e5. And yes, white also has a passed pawn on c4. So the only advantage I would say that black has is that black has a bishop for a knight. Carrying on the game, we have king d7 and king b4 attacking, actually not attacking, the pawn on e4 defended by the bishop. So king d6, knight to c3. Now attacking the e4 pawn. e4, advancing the pawn again. So, just advancing the pawn. Knight can't take, by the way, because defended by the bishop. So, knight to d1, preventing the pawn from playing e3. And king plays e5, preparing to play d4. White king, plays c5, bishop retreats to e8 and a3, preventing the pawn to advance on a3. I mean the black pawn to advance on a3. So king f4, king d4, king f3, preparing so king f3, knight e3, blocking the pawn to advance on e3. Bishop to c6, defending the pawn on e3, on e4, sorry, and c5. King f4, knight c4, bishop b4, offering trade, knight b6, bishop retreats to c6, blocking the pawn from moving, knight c4, bishop b5, so this is like a drawing position now, knight e3, and as you can see, it was a draw. I hope you enjoyed this analysing video where we analyse the game between Garry Kasparov and Michael Adams. Hope you enjoyed it, and please remember to comment, like and subscribe to this channel.